everyone, and welcome to Tap Into Your Creativity. Today is Wednesday. We have Pam Caughey coming in and joining me today, and I can't wait for her to join us. She is living in Montana, and she is going to join us any minute now, so let's just wait for her to come in. She is a teacher, she is an instructor, she's a mentor, and she is a coach. And she kind of does it all, really. She has a YouTube channel that is super successful. She is like I said, she's a teacher. She's unbelievable, inspirational. She herself is an incredible artist. And I can't wait for her to join us. So Pam, if you're out there, make sure to click on my little icon there, and you're gonna see me live. So how's everyone doing? I hope you're doing well. I am having a really great time here, and I'm looking forward for this interview so much. Pam has become a good friend of mine, and it's really great. Hey, Kat and Brenda and all my friends who are Ophelia, thank you so much. It's so great to see everyone joining us today. It's going to be an incredible interview. I'm just waiting for Pam to join, so I'm just going to send her a little text here just to make sure that she, yes, I agree. Pam's work is amazing, and she is just an incredible person, human being, teacher, coach, anything. So if you've never experienced her before, you have to do it today. And I'm just texting her. Hopefully she will be joining us really soon. So wait for a minute here. Give me 1 second. Okay, I don't see Pam yet. So I'm hoping, 1 second, she's here. I'm just like texting her. That's why I'm not with you guys. So just give me 1 second. Okay, she's trying to get in, so give us 1 second. And, oh, there she is, yay! Okay. All right, here she comes. Thank you for being patient, and thank you for, there she is.
Hi,
Hi, Pam.
Hi, Sandra. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited.
So am I. This is really an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm so happy for people to get to know you at in a very different way, a very different light, since people know you as a teacher, as a coach, but they don't know who Pam really is. And we're gonna get to learn who Pam really is. And let's start with your name and where do you work and where are you from?
Okay, well, my name is Pamela Caughey. People call me Pam, but the reason I go with Pamela is because usually when I'm on the phone and people say, "Who is this?" and I'll say Pam, they usually hear ham. So I go with Pamela. And yeah, it's one of those things. I don't know what it's, my voice is kind of soft and I think people misunderstand me. So that's the only reason for the formality. But I grew up in Wisconsin, and so I'm a definite cheesehead. I love cheese, and grew up in a very small town called Grafton, and like 5,000 people, and lived there most of my life until I finished college, and then moved and lived in London for a few years, and then Durham, North Carolina, then Montana for the last 31 years. So,
Oh my gosh, what did you do in London?
so that was right after I got married to Byron, who is a biochemist, and his PhD advisor took his whole lab to London, and so at the School of Pharmacy. And after I graduated, most people know my story. I did not have a happy ending in biochemistry, but that is how I met him. And so,
Actually, most people in this channel don't. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
yeah, sure. So, okay, well, going back to when I had to make that big decision, like everybody does, like what should I do when I go to college, right? What should I be? What should I do? And prior to going to study in college, I sort of felt like I was at a real crossroads because I could do a lot of things that I really enjoyed. You know, I enjoyed sports, I enjoyed academics, I enjoyed art. Of course, that was my favorite thing, but my parents were, I'd say, pretty practical. They didn't, you know, it was pretty clear that if I mentioned that I wanted to be an artist, it would be like, sure, you can do that, but you know, you'll basically starve. So that wasn't cool. And so I did the right thing, and I decided to basically follow in my sister's. She's 4 years older than me, and she went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison and studied bacteriology. So of course, I wanted to choose something that was just a little harder than that. So I chose biochemistry, and I really thought I could do it. I didn't really love it, but it didn't really matter because, you know, it sounded good. And anyways, by the end of that 4 years, nearly did me in. I definitely had like a major nervous breakdown because I put way too much stress on myself, on grades, you know, that whole thing that happens. So I'm very much like a type A. I used to be like very much a perfectionist, but a lot of it was to, you know, like just, I don't know, just try to do the best you can. Anyway, so after all that, it all fell apart. And I, I was so unstable mentally that I knew at that time that the 4 years I just spent studying this really hard curriculum, that I would never work in that field again. I learned that right before I graduated. So it was kind of like very, very depressing. But when I met my husband, Byron, we got married, went to London, and I did not work. I could have worked in the School of Pharmacy as a scientist if I'd been like normal. But instead, I worked as his departmental secretary. And that alone was very stressful in my current mental state. I just remember like fearing. I couldn't walk through doorways. I couldn't eat with people. I couldn't. My boss would come like rambling out of his door and jiggle the brass handle, and I would just about hit the roof. My nerves were just so like super sensitive. So, but I did take adult art classes, and I love that. And walk through dark alleys at night in London. You know, would never do that now, but you know, so yeah, that's
Yeah, it's interesting how life works, right? And that helps us to become who we are now. Because
yeah.
if you didn't have had that experience, maybe you would have never really dove into art. Like, what was that transition for you like?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Sandra. I would not change my past if I could do it all over again. I wouldn't change a thing. And I find that really remarkable because I spent 20 years, I think it was about 20 years, totally unmedicated, totally filled with panic, fear, anxiety attacks. I couldn't play the piano anymore after studying it for 20 years and being told I could have been a concert pianist. And it goes on and on. Um, the reason I would never change anything, though, and the reason why I'm actually grateful for my past is because I think that as far as art goes, art became it was always the thing I loved the most. I always knew that, like even from kindergarten, I always looked forward to art. High school, always took every art class I could. You know, college, I couldn't get into art classes, but I managed to take a few. So what it taught me, I think all the struggling, is that art is the one place where no matter what you experience in life, good, bad, happy, sad, up, down, whatever it is, art is the place for that expression. And the critical thing, I think, is for us to just be honest. And what I found was that when I first pursued art, it was like I was still in that, okay, I'm doing something that I know my parents didn't really approve of. So whatever I do, it better be perfect. It better be pretty. It better sell, you know, and that is such a different kind of art. And what happened was I did that for, as a young mother in Montana when we first moved here. And for a good, let's see, 15 years, I created pretty watercolors. They sold, and, you know, it was everything most people would think you'd want. But I then plateaued and I stopped painting for 10 solid years, never picked up
Wow.
anything because I knew something was missing and I didn't know what it was. And I found no joy. Like I could not do another pretty painting. And what I realized, I then applied to the grad school after our boys grew up. We have two boys, and after they grew up and went on their way, it was like, okay, well, maybe this is time for me to figure out what's missing. I was self-taught up until this point, you know, and then I applied to the grad school and found out there are many universities that don't allow you to go into grad school unless you have an undergrad in, you know, in art. Well, my undergrad was obviously in biochemistry, but I had to take 30 studio credits just to be able to apply. And then fortunately I got in. What I learned in grad school, which, you know, I love to share this because it's not, you know, anyone who's self-taught, it's not that you have to go to grad school to learn, you know, to be a great artist. Um, what I learned was that in the art that I'd previously created, it didn't align with my life. I was painting pretty happy, joyful, colorful paintings of flowers and, you know, stuff like that. And yeah, it sold, but my life was like on the dark side. I almost died. In fact, I feel like whoever I was in the past, there was a point where that person, when I was what, 22, completely was unrecognizable. So I had to say, okay, that person's gone. I don't think I'll ever see that person again. I don't know who I am now. I don't even know what I can do. Actually, art became the only thing I could do. That's the ironic part. I actually couldn't do anything else. So not only was it the only thing I loved, but coming back to it, it was the only thing I could actually do because I could be on my own. I could be by myself. I didn't have to talk to people. I was so socially isolated. I felt so uncomfortable around people. So anyways, in grad school, what I learned was that not only did my former art not align with the real me, the new me, the me that was trying to survive in this world. So my art started to change. And in grad school, my thesis, pretty quickly, I knew what I wanted to do. It had to be something pretty dark. And people who know me know that I'm pretty much. Can you still see me? Okay,
Yeah.
my phone was
Yeah.
blinking out. That I mostly identify with death, which in our culture, in our society is a very like almost like a taboo subject. Nobody wants to talk about death. But for me, that was my comfort zone. Like, show me death, show me pain, show me suffering, show me anxiety, depression, and anything else you can think of. Show me. So the only thing I could find as a metaphor in my life, ironically, was I had been to Japan, you know, to grad school, gone to see the museums, you know, and it so happened at that time at the University of Montana, there was a exhibit of the centenarians, the people who survived the atomic bomb
Yeah.
from Hiroshima. And these centenarians were videotaped and they were all talking about their experience and they're about ready to, they're not going to be with us much longer. So we have that thing where, you know, once we don't have them telling their stories anymore, we may soon forget. And that really impacted me. And I did a lot of research. And so I decided to do my thesis on that. Anyways, long story short, my art became very dark. My entire thesis was about psychological, social, and globalism, whether it's chemical, biological, nuclear, didn't matter. So in some ways, not only did it address the fear and pain and suffering, it also brought my science background in because I made it very, I relied on the science in my background. I discovered that I actually did really love um, like the cycles, like glycolysis. I studied all these cycles and the periodic table and all these things from my past. It wasn't the science itself. It was more like the symbolism. There was a lot of
Yeah.
art in
Yeah.
science. So anyways,
Well, I want to say just for a second that thank you for being so open and for sharing your feelings. I think that there's a lot of people right now that identify with what you're feeling, what you were feeling back when you were 22 years old. Unfortunately, we're in a very unsteady world right now where we don't know many factors, and the mental health is so important right now. And the only way that I seem to be able to understand what's happening is through art and letting everything out there and putting it all on paper or on canvas and it doesn't matter, like you said, it doesn't need to be pretty, it needs to be honest. And so thank you for your honesty, because I think that this is a very candid conversation, and it's important to tell people we're not perfect, we're far from it, and we work every day to be better or to find our better self, right?
right.
So now that you are in this transition, and I was actually in Japan last summer, and I was there in the Hiroshima museum, and it was so impactful, and it reminded me too of the Holocaust and having those survivors that we're losing that generation, and it's so important to speak with them so it will never happen again. So it's the same situation, and we have it right now, and it's kind of just weird to understand that that it's all, we are so vulnerable at any time.
Yes, yes. I think life can turn on a dime. I think I learned from looking at the past and given the just a lot of things, but I don't think I think much about the future anymore. I think about today, because I don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. And the longer we go, the way things are now, there are so many crises going on simultaneously. And if you were the type of person who thinks about the future a lot or dwells in the past, it's very difficult then to enjoy the moment you're in. And
Yes,
so,
like my parents, I was with my parents last night, and they were saying to me, like, you cannot be preoccupied. Pre is like, what are you gonna do? Like like it's the before that you can't. Better occupied yourself on today, but not preoccupied yourself, if
yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, it does. I don't know if listeners out there have heard Eckhart Tolle. Are you familiar with his Power of Now?
Yes.
I loved it. I don't know when I actually listened to his audio tapes, but whenever it was, boy, it really stuck with me. Like he gave this example of you're stuck in traffic, and you're like angry, you're getting road rage because you're just like stuck and maybe it's smoggy. And he's like, just breathe and ask yourself, like, what's wrong with this moment, right? Like this is the
Right.
moment you're in right now. So every time I start to feel like this kind of like anger, whatever it is, it's like, nope, no, what's wrong with this moment right now? How can we, just breathe and yeah. So
Yeah. So let's go back. So you got your MFA, and then how did you decide to make that transition from being an artist yourself to now being this incredible international teacher, coach, mentor? How did that happen?
well, that's a good question. Because to be honest, most people who go and get their MFA, it's usually because they want to teach. In my case, I never thought of like why I was like, it wasn't for a purpose. It was only to, for me, fill in gaps that I had.
Right.
The MFA just happened to be a piece of paper. I didn't care because I had no intention of teaching. That wasn't, I did have to teach as a grad student, and I really enjoyed it, to my surprise. However, so after I graduated in 2010, I did start teaching at the college level, and I taught actually all three foundations courses, so drawing, sculpture, and painting and 2D color and design. And I had not like nobody had, well, first of all, I had actually like passed out of those things. So I never even took it in college because I looked at the portfolio from London and they're like, okay, well, you don't have to take 2D color and design. And later I find out that I have to teach it. So I freaked out. I got every book I could get on it and I started to like cram just so I could teach, at the college level. It was kind of funny. And then, so I taught then, and then I had a lot going on, lots of shows and all that kind of stuff. And then later on, I took a couple of cold wax and oil workshops because I always wanted to do oils, but I knew that the
You were
traditional,
a little intimidated like everyone else is.
yeah, well, the whole traditional way of oils is very intimidating. When, the whole fat over lean thing, and you go to museums and you see all the cracked paintings, it's like, I don't really think I want to do that. Then I think I probably heard about Rebecca Kroll, that there was something called cold wax, and I thought, what is that? And so I started to like hunt her down, like who teaches this? And of course it was Rebecca. So I attended one of her workshops, and I also attended one of Lisa Pressman's on Whidbey Island. And I mean, it's a very fascinating medium. I don't know if you've ever tried that, Sandra.
I haven't, and I am so looking after I talked to Paula Rowland, who's like
Oh,
also
yeah.
a master of masters.
Yes.
I said I need a workshop like tomorrow. Like I actually need one. I am so interested in it. I think it's fascinating. I love the monotypes that you can make from them.
Yes.
It just looks like a really satisfying medium to me.
Yeah, there are many, amazing things about working with the medium. The greatest benefit to me was that you don't need a lot of ventilation. You don't have to worry about endless mediums to add to make it work. You've got a longer working time because up till this point, I hit encaustic pretty hard in 2008. I had already done watercolor, picked up acrylic mixed media somewhere between watercolor and encaustic. Gouache, everything. Like my studio now or at any point, like I love multiple mediums, right? So that was the one that was kind of missing, like oils. So anyways, I learned it. And then when I went to, when I was at the workshop in Wisconsin, learning from Rebecca, several students approached me and they just said, hey, could you come back here next year and teach? And I was like, okay. I just learned it. And here I'm like, this is what I do. I tend to say okay to whatever it is, and it's usually above my head, no matter what, like whatever it is. Grad school, sure, I'll do it, whatever. Then I go back in a year, but in the process of that next term, like, okay, now I got to actually learn how to do this because I'm going to be teaching it in a year. So I found that for me, I like to set the bar really high of things that I've not done before. I'm not comfortable. I don't know what I'm doing. That's a good place to be because then I'll freak out and I will kill myself to basically feel like at least I know what I'm doing. And that's actually how I started to teach because when I went back to the Shake Ray Galley in Mineral Point, my good friend Christy McNabb was the one who kind of orchestrated me going there. I went back every year and it kind of grew from there. So I mean, I've always focused on not on technique because what I found is that I thought back to my watercolor days. I thought back to almost every single workshop I've ever taken, and it's always like technique, technique, technique. And when a teacher did try to talk about, say, color and design, it was very often very confusing. And I thought, wow, that's kind of amazing because technique will only get you so far. And the thing about hopping from medium to medium, I could tell from my own experience that the reason I did that was because I plateaued. Like, okay, I'm fine with watercolor, but now I'm like bored or I'm stuck. Maybe I better move into acrylic because it's got to be the medium, right? You always blame it on the medium. Well, it's not. And so what I teach now is something I just believe so passionately in, and that is that there is a visual language of art. And when I was studying watercolor, it was in my books, and I saw it in about 3 really good ones. But I had to hear it many times over the next 20 years before I was like, maybe there really is something to color and design. Maybe there really is some science behind color, and maybe there is some, ways that I can
Help
share
others.
what I learned
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm much more about, no, you can work in any medium. I don't care what medium you're working in, 2D, because I'm not teaching sculpture, but you've got to know these things. If you don't know these things, you're going to struggle. You're going to have like highs and lows. You're going to have hits and misses and not know why. You're going to get stuck and not know how to finish your work. And it's like, forget that.
And it's okay, right? It's okay, Pam, to feel uncomfortable and to feel uneasy on something new. I mean, it's better to try that something new and really dig yourself in there and stay there in the uncomfortableness, in the ugly and the not so great, and feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to give up, but not give up. Keep on it, like conquer that medium, and then say, you know, as an educational, thought, I do not like this medium because of this and this and this, or I love it. It was a great struggle because now I got to another point in my life that I can use a whole different medium.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. Every medium has its pros and cons. A lot of it has more to do with like how long does it take to dry? You know, how much can I layer it? How much can I see through it? Those kinds of things. Of course, technique is important, but I guess the way I look at it is that if you don't first focus on the language that allows you to say what you want to say, like then like because the technique for me will follow. I kind of look at it in the reverse, is that if I can first figure out what it is I love and want to express, the technique will follow. And it's going to be because I will figure out what I need to know, which is different from everybody else because they want to say something different from me. So if my technique follows in the correct order of like, no, know what I love first and the technique will follow, then I think that for me is my way of like, that for me helped me to find my personal voice.
That's great. So, I'm super excited right now because you are going to show us your work, and we're going to talk about the non-objective art that you do and all your language that you have, and you're going to give us a little tour of your studio. So let's start with just talking about your artwork. Pam is going to take her phone off the tripod and she's going to flip the camera. So there we go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I flipped my camera around here. Hope you can
Yes.
see. Just so you know, my studio does not often look this organized. This is organized. But
Thanks, Pam.
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you're like this too, Sandra, but you organize and slave away doing that. Like 5 minutes later, it's this disaster area again.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
I want to talk about the work, but I also like want to just share a few little tips about how I organize my stuff because I work in 4 mediums, and this became very important after our home burned down. I had a bigger space, and it's like, okay, but I need to have stations where I work. So just starting off in this little area here, this is a oil and coal wax painting. There's a story behind it just because I messed up when I cut the paper and stuck it on the wall. I didn't measure carefully. So in the end, what I did was I created a huge problem for myself to mount the paper onto 4 wooden panels that are all, I'm going to stand way back here if I can see. So
Yeah.
all 4 panels. But anyways, so yeah, this is a non-objective piece. I do work non-objectively. And the reason is, I guess I should talk a little bit about that since
Yes.
I think, there's a lot of interest in the artists that you are interviewing. So I've already done realism, I've done photorealism, I've done semi-abstraction, I've done semi-realism. I've done, a lot of like ism or whatever. And what I found is that contrary to what, say, the uneducated public out there will
Yeah.
right? Because I've had the comments saying, hey, my 3-year-old could do that. I used to be offended, but now I'm like, thank you, because actually I spend so much time trying to be that inner child that if anyone ever accuses me of thinking like a child or being like a child, I'm actually quite flat. I don't take it as a negative anymore because as adults, it's very, very hard for us to
Yes.
know,
Yes.
what the public wants you to do and what they expect you to be and all that. So I mean, just with this painting here, this one, I know what it is that I must have in my work. I really spent a lot of time thinking about that. What do I need in my work? I need marks. I need chaos because my life is chaotic. I am like, I have nerves, obviously. But so energy is what I get out of mark making, and I try to exploit my mark. So here's one piece, and then just walking over here, I'm on the end of my studio, just to point out that like this part of my studio is very much devoted to oil painting. So like I've got a table with, this is all my oil painting and cold wax stuff. My materials are all on this cart, which has wheels. So one way I organize is, now I do have linoleum floors, but if you had carpeting or whatever, like I found that the best way for me to organize in stations is to group all my materials, like all my oil-based things go on one cart. And then over here, I've got like my drawing cart, not just drawing, but mark making. I should say more mark
drawing tools. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So like when Sandra, you asked me like, what are my favorite materials? Everything that you see here, the reason why I really added everything to my resource page at artandsuccess.com is because I go there and like, I need this. Where is it? I click on it, I get it. I actually have my own kind of like website that lists everything. So everything that you see that I show you in my studio right now is probably on that resource page. Yes. But anyway, all the, drawing tools here. So that's one cart, and then my hardware cart is here. It's dedicated for, you know, like I don't want my hardware to be mixed up with anything else. Where's that hammer? You know, here. And then this other, this is a Costco thing. So you get these racks, and yeah,
I love those racks. I have them in my own studio, actually.
Yeah, everybody knows about these. But here's one other like cool thing for organizing is that, you know, you can add to these racks. So I've got these little hooks that hold my aprons. You can buy S hooks that allow you to hang other things. I mean, look at how many things you can hang on there. It's meant.
Yeah, that's amazing. Amazing. Seriously.
Yes. And
so what do you have? I mean, that table that you have there, the flat table with your papers, is that for storage of papers or for new papers that you have ready to go? Your aluminum drawers?
Oh yeah. Let's talk about the flat file. So this is this is what you meant?
Yes. Uh-huh.
This is after our fire. I never had a flat file quite like this. I actually had an awesome one that I gotten from an architect a long time ago. He stored it in this barn, and it was all solid wood. It was so cool. It even had a light box in it, but I lost it. So this is a pretty chintzy one. It's not very good, but yeah, this is, so what I've done here, and this is like one of the things I must organize next. I do have labels, like here are the creamy labels. You can see they're handwritten, and my writing is awful. But
no, it's not.
I've got like, okay, so my Arches oil paper here, and then I've got, you know, rice paper. I've got, let's see, I've got Bristol board. I've got a drawer for finished work, and then newsprint, tissue paper. I've got teaching materials, work in progress, and stencils as you go down. They're nice drawers though, like this would be my collage paper drawer, and
yeah.
You know, like you
yeah. That's amazing that you have the space for all your stations. I mean,
yeah,
that makes life so much easier because then you can really, everything is so accessible.
Yes, I agree totally. And in my other situation, I had 4. I was like a parasite in our house. I had taken over like both sides of the garage and the living room and downstairs, and when the house burned down, like I lost all 4 of my studios. So
I'm so sorry. Oh my God. I can't even imagine what you guys went through.
Well, just ask any person in California right now. I think,
yeah,
my heart breaks for all those people anywhere, actually. You know, hurricanes too. I think the thing about a devastating thing like that, because we really did lose everything, was that what it did for me and our whole family was help us realize, help us to relate to so many other people who've gone through.
Yeah. Pensacola, Florida today is getting it really hard. So our thoughts and prayers are with everyone down there, and hope that everyone is safe and seeks shelter. Yeah.
It's very, very heartbreaking. And yeah. So getting back to just a little tour of the work. I don't know how good the lighting is here. It's
good. It's great. Okay.
So when what I teach in my main course online is powerful design, personal color. And, you know, I try to use what I obviously try to practice what I preach, I guess, if that's one way to put it. And I myself kind of have a method. When I started teaching, I developed this 9 stages of creativity. And my school is on the Teachable platform, and they reached out to me yesterday and they said, hey, could you do a workshop for us? So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to be talking about my 9 stages of creativity, because and everybody can actually make their own process, but for those who work non-objectively, I think they may find that there's a real correlation between what I do and what maybe you do. The reason being that there's a time to think and a time not to think. And I think that would, if I had to summarize what those stages are, it boils down to, a lot of us, our left brain gets in the way, becomes hypercritical. We get frustrated when in the ugly stage. We're like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. I'm going to throw it in the closet or under my bed and never look at that again. Or I'm going to switch mediums because, hey, this medium's not working. It's ugly. But the ugly stage is like a very important stage. It's one I really cherish now. I'm just going to walk in kind of as I'm talking here.
Yes, yes.
So these are just some little smaller works. But so, of course, all of these paintings, regardless of what you think, they've gone through the ugly stage. And I don't care, you may still think it's ugly. That's fine. I don't care. I mean, that's the other good thing, too, is once you find your personal voice, it does not matter what other people think. They can tell you anything. They can love it. They can hate it. They can say, oh my gosh, it's done. And you can say, no, it's not. And it just does not matter. And I found that to be so wonderful, because my husband used to come in when I'd be like working on encaustic at 3 a.m, and he'd come by and say, oh my gosh, I love that, don't touch it. And I'd be like, no, it's not done. Take a picture, because by the time you wake up, it'll be different.
So let's just stop at one of your favorite paintings. Which one would you say is one that for you is a very successful painting?
Okay. From a design standpoint, well, I mean, I guess I don't really look at it that way. I kind of like feel like these are my children, right? So what you're asking me is, do you have a child you love more than the other?
I know. Okay, let's focus on that one, because I think that that one in particular is very different from the ones that you've shown us, which are darker values. This is on a much lighter value. Correct. It has all the elements of non-objective art, which has the lines, the geometrical shapes, the composition, the language between the communities of elements that you have. The repetition of lines that are going, on a vertical side, which gives it a rhythm to the painting. And so all those elements give this beautiful, it's like a tranquility. Mentally, it's just so easy to look at and to identify yourself with.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
It does. So you've just like talked about so many important things. The way what you're doing is you're using the visual language to basically read and react and respond to art you see. So when you have a good handle on the visual language, you're able to communicate with me or any other artist on how you feel about their work. How many times have you asked a friend who maybe doesn't know a lot about art, and they come to your show and they say, oh, I like that. Okay, now compare that to what you just said. The reason why you were able to just like talk about all the things you just did was because you understand that it is a language, and all we have in art, it's actually not nearly as really, we don't have 26 characters in the alphabet. We only have 7 design elements. So when you break a painting down, and that's kind of what I focus on when I paint, I'm not like saying, okay, now it's time for lines or anything like that. But it's just that I so care about, like shape and mark making and sophisticated colors, that I will do anything I can to make those things happen. And I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to give up. That's one of my rules. I don't ever want anyone in my courses to ever throw anything away, because a painting that you want to throw away is like a child that just needs a timeout. It needs to just go in the corner, and you need to not see it for a while. And so
What is that medium that you use on this one? Is this encaustic?
No, this is oil and cold wax.
Okay.
And the entire, let me think, this entire painting, I believe, oh my gosh, if you saw the early stages, is on YouTube. There's several videos that document this painting's process. So I use my YouTube channel for a couple things. I mean, it was an accident when I started it, but I wanted to document the life of my paintings. And I found that others were interested, to my surprise, and that's kind of why the channel kind of grew. But really for me, it was like, I want to know, like I want to look over my shoulder and see what I did. I also wanted to leave something behind for, if I ever had grandchildren, which I do now. So it's like, okay, grandma's gone, but look, she's got a YouTube channel.
I love that. Does that have any collage, or is it just the layers?
This one, I do sometimes work in collage. This one does not. One of the things that, with cold wax medium and oils that, again, any medium may not necessarily be the best for what you want to say, but it's up to you as the artist first to identify what it is you want. Like, for instance, it's not necessarily easy to say do stripes, right? Because you got gloppy, like you're painting with frosting and silicone tools. It's not like you're doing a watercolor. So, but it's up to you then. If I like stripes, I better figure out how to do it in this medium, whether the medium likes it or not. I have to impose what I want on it. So, yeah, like, and this one over here is an acrylic, and again, I do love stripes. And to my surprise, like I do have Japanese heritage. I got a book on kimono patterns, and what I loved about the book was that it had dots and stripes, which I'm obsessed with. And it's like, oh, maybe that's why, because it's kind of in my genes, So this is an acrylic, and I have a way to finish my acrylics so they actually look kind of like encaustic, which, like, here's now this end of my studio is devoted to oils. And then this middle area here, like I've got acrylic, and then I've got like a photo station there. And over here, this is why.
Wow. It keeps going and going.
Well, yeah, I feel really lucky. But this building here, I drove by it for 30 years. Never saw a single car in the parking lot. And then I finally said, hey, can I rent it? So it's available. And so this is where I do all the encaustic. You can see my table with frying pans. I hope to create a course for encaustic because I do love encaustic, but it's just a much more involved medium. Here's an encaustic painting. Again, I feel like my vocabulary, I know, I love shape, right? And I love color. So, and I want to give a shout out to Ron Jansen, who is in New York, and he has donated to Feeding America. Thank you so much, Ron.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Thank you so much. So this is the piece that Pam created for my COVID art project. And she just sold that to Ron for $400. So I think our grand total right now, we're at $15,500 for Feeding America, which is an equivalent for more than 50,000 meals, you guys. It is, I can't even tell. This just is so dear to my heart, and my community of artists, my army of artists that I called, have joined me in this incredible endeavor, and I couldn't do this without you. So thank you, Pam, for participating and for selling that before we could even show it. I mean, this was it went like that. So yeah.
And I just want to really, truly thank you, Sandra, for number one, coming up with the idea. And I do realize that, oh my gosh, when I think about all the amount of work you put into this army of artists, Feeding America, all the organizational skills you've had to have, how you put your own art aside to be able to do this during a very critical time for our country and even the world. And that says an awful lot, and I think people are very touched. I love what you're doing, and so support it. And I hope others who, in any case, who didn't get the painting that was for the other artists or whatever, that you'll still donate, because even $15, $10. I mean, how many meals do you does?
I mean, $1 is I think it's the equivalent of $350 is the equivalent, which that's what I usually ask for each of the artwork. It's
Right.
equivalent for 35,000 meals. So
Oh,
just think about that for a minute.
oh my,
$350 is the equivalent of 3,500 meals.
that's,
So, I mean, if you guys want to just, join my army of artists, you can make a donation to Feeding America. Just let me know. Send me your receipt. I will tally that into the total amount that we're making. We are making a huge difference. And Pam, can you just let's just switch gears for a minute. I want to talk about that artwork because that is very different. That has it has a graph there, the grade that you have with the diamond shapes.
sure.
Is how did you create that?
So this one's, just so you know, every single stage of this painting is on YouTube. This is when I first discovered YouTube. I didn't know a darn thing about videotaping anything. I started painting on the floor with oils. So I had fluid, cold wax medium, and oils. I had black, and I mean, this painting started out with just like black and white, and then went on to the wall. And I used graphite powder to make it dirty, and then I scored it into this diamond pattern. I mean, I struggled with it, obviously, because every painting is a battle. And I like to describe every painting like you've got 7 battles going on. Each element, there's a battle, right? So in order to, like, for me to be at peace with my work when I finish it, I need to like look at each battle that's gone on, like what's going on with the line, right? So in this case, I can go up close a little bit, but obviously the underlying feeling, structure of this painting is geometric. I love geometry. I love, pattern. I think that's part of my heritage as well. So, okay, so that part of it, in terms of shape and line, because they're kind of connected,
Right.
definitely rectilinear feel, but then a case of occasional, curvilinear element, and then you vary the size of those curvilinear elements, and you vary the size, you vary the value, the color, all these things. This is a fairly also like limited palette.
I was just going to say that that's a limited palette, and then that those little uh, marks that you have in that orangey color are very important to this piece.
Yes.
They're probably as important as a whole piece because you're using it to accentuate just a little bit, but it's enough to make it just right. So if you go back to the one on the left, you have those vertical marks that you did,
Mm-hmm.
and no, with the orange.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
those lines to me are as important as a whole piece.
Yeah, that's a great, and I love that you said that because that's one of my observations as well about color, right? If you love color, it doesn't mean that like, let's say orange is my favorite color. This might be my way of saying that, right? I don't have to have my entire thing like, it's almost like overkill. It's like eating way too much of something because you love it, but what you really wanted was just a little. So I do try to focus on that myself is, in order to, I guess, be minimal with color in this way, it's very important to know that it can still have impact, right? And
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. I think that's what I'm saying to you. It is as impactful to me as a whole piece. And
yeah,
so, like you just said, you don't need to use that whole color, background. Just with the small strokes of a little color
yeah.
can be, you know, beautifully done. I actually love that you use so
Thank,
little, but yet it's so important in that piece.
thank you. Yeah, I like the metaphor in some ways of thinking of like if you love color and in any one piece, you're going to feature certain things. And I like to think of color or anything you're featuring as kind of like, let's talk about high saturated color because that's kind of what that color is here, and there's not very much of it. I look at those things as they're precious like diamonds. if you really value color and you really love color, are you going to just like hand out a, crap load of diamonds or something? Or do you want to keep it for, no, it's special and I'm not going to kill you with my diamonds. I'm just going to give you a few, So
Yes, exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
And then this one is one I also did. I documented this on YouTube. Really just did this as whatever. I whipped up some paper, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of this. I just love to kind of share.
Did you do it on paper and then glue it on the panel?
I did, and
What kind of glue do you use? I get that question all the
yeah,
time.
yeah. It's line. I use Lineco, Lineco, pH neutral adhesive, but you can use like PVA, which stands for polyvinyl acetate, I think, and anything that's like acid free, but this paper here is probably a 140-pound Arches oil paper. So it's not wimpy paper, and there's a real process here. I'm not going to lie to you. The advantage of working on paper, I love working on paper, but the flip side is that you're going to pay the price when it comes time to mount that thing on a panel. You got to get the panel. You've got to measure correctly. You've got to get the glue on there. You got to be fast. You got to
make sure that you don't have any bubbles.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Oh.
I just dealt with the whole bubble thing before this interview today, because oh my gosh, I had these ready for my show that didn't happen in June. So I put off the finishing part, and then I was like, crap, I've got bubbles, and so
I know. I had a painting that we love it, and my daughter actually wanted me to put that as the book cover for my I'm doing a book for selected artworks of mine. And I said, I can't do that because it has bubbles. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I can't do it. Aesthetically, it's just a disaster.
But you actually can. I mean, what's the medium?
No, I mean, I couldn't put that picture because it bothered me that it had those bubbles. It's, I did it, I think it was craft paper on canvas, and it just bubbled up on me.
Well, I want to show you something right now then, because the reason I say I got to find the right. Okay, so in this painting, I just dealt with bubbles. They weren't actually bubbles. What they were the glue. For whatever reason, in spite of all the braying and trying to flatten it out, this area right here was like wavy, right? Is that what you're talking about, wavy?
Yes, yes.
Well, first, if it's a bubble, if it's an air bubble, all you have to do is slit it with a razor blade, stick some glue in it, and press it out. You can do that.
Yes.
But in this case, I had hardened glue, not air. So what I had to do, and I wasn't sure if I had the guts to do it, but I got out my orbital sander and I sanded it down.
Oh, I think I'm going to do that.
Yeah. And then you just paint over it. And that's what I did. And now you can't even see it. So kind of cool.
All right, let's flip your camera around so we can see you, because we only have like 7 minutes left, and I want to open the floor for questions. If anyone has questions for Pam, this would be the time to ask. But Pam, what would be, you think, like 3 tips that you would give to artists now on how to approach a non-objective painting?
Yeah, well, perfect. I like the 3 tips because that kind of aligns with, I'll just share with you my 3 tips for how I do non-objective work. Basically, I try to, when I start a painting, I want to be starting without any preconceived idea. Not all non-objective work begins that way, but if you want to say, really figure out who you are as an artist, and you feel like you've got that hunch that you are going to be a non-objective or abstract artist, it's very important to give yourself the freedom and the opportunity to play like a child and fail, because let's face it, that children are not thinking of success. So we as adults need to let go of that idea that I must succeed when I begin a painting. So that's number 1. And then number 2 is, when you get stuck, and you will, because art is not easy. There's no one in this world who is a professional artist who will ever tell you that art is easy. The only one who will tell you art is easy is those who have never done it. So give yourself some credit. You're doing something that's picking up any or doing any type of creativity takes courage. So when you get stuck, don't give up. But the way to not give up is to continue to try different things. So instead of like tucking that painting in the corner that's not working out well, expand your knowledge of technique and understand what the design elements principles are, so that you have a toolbox that is so full that, and this is what's happened to me. I get stuck all the time. Oh, I know all about getting stuck. But now, like, hey, I'm going to reach into my toolbox, and grab this. I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab a big shape. I'm going to grab a different color. I'm going to grab opacity. I'm going to grab translucency, right? So your toolbox, I'm not talking about, the tools on a card. I'm talking about the visual language. So your toolbox, the most important thing then is those
Someone
tools.
is asking, how strictly do you mean that? Don't your final paintings often surprise you compared to the idea you started with?
Yes, but so I don't start with an idea, number one, because I try very hard to have that childlike mentality in the beginning. The only thing I do as a child is I have to choose some colors to start with, right? Now, those colors that I choose can either be random or they can be according to some limited palette or any other thing. However, I don't start with any idea because I want to let the painting tell me what it wants to be. And I want to be in conversation with the painting as it grows up to become an adult. So the second tip was then to don't give up, keep pushing, keep trying new things. And then the third thing is to finish your work, because you might get your painting to 90% and say, I like this. I'm good. I think I'll move on to the next one. But I listen to this all the time in critique. People say, I really like this painting, and I'm listening to the word like. They're not saying, oh my gosh. I have a student who says, oh my gosh, I love my painting. Very rarely, and I don't say that about my own work most of the time. So, the idea
Finish.
The idea is to love the work you do, to strive to love it, but don't think you're going to attain that level, because that's an extremely high level, but shoot for it. That's like shooting for the stars, and finish your work, because if you don't finish your work and tuck it away and say, good enough, good enough, good enough, you're settling for good, and you're not settling for all it can be. And that last 5% is when it becomes great. If you do not figure out the difference between good and great, and it's usually very small things. People in my critique class, which I have one today, they are very surprised when I show them how little changing a color, changing the saturation of the color,
could become great.
Yes.
Yes.
And
and one more question before we leave. My good friend Garnet asked, why don't you paint directly on the panel? Why do you have to paint on paper and then go to the panel? Why can't you just?
Yeah, it has to do with space. If I painted on panel, like these panels are heavy, they're 48 by 48, and I have a pretty big space here, but I'm already starting to run out of space. So I have to work on paper so I can store it flat. When I have a show or whatever I need, I can mount it on panel, get it out the door. But that's my solution for space. That's why.
Okay, but not because you wouldn't want to necessarily start or paint on the actual panel, correct?
I love paper, but I also love panel. But they're heavy and they're just hard to store. So yeah, for me, it's like I'm more interested in productivity than yeah. But
okay. Thank you. We are running out of time, unfortunately. So thank you, Pam, so much. You gave us so much food for the soul today, and thank you for being part of my army of artists. I can't thank you enough. I feel like I've gained a friend. And stay tuned, because Pam and I might be doing something great in the future. So thank you. And we will see you. I'm taking this Saturday off. And Happy New Year to everyone who is, for Rosh Hashanah, it's this Saturday. So anyone who is celebrating, happy, healthy new year to you and your family. And I will see you next Wednesday. Thank you with Fernanda Rivero. See you then. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you so much.